We are now in chapter 7, where we will be displaying getting data from RESTful APIs with Axios. So in this chapter, we'll see how to call backend services to get data through RESTful APIs with the Axios library. So as a quick introduction, we can get GitHub users data with the following URL here, this one, and we specify our search term in the URL to get GitHub data for user with the name matching our search term. So an example is this name here, Greg. When we make a call to this URL, we'll get the following JSON objects as a result. And then we are going to use the Axios library. Axios is a promise-based HTTP client for the browser and Node.js. We use it to make AJAX calls to the server. Axios provides the get method for getting a resource, post for creating it, put for updating it, delete for delete and head for getting metadata regarding a resource. We will illustrate using Axios to get data from a RESTful API in the following code example. So as you can see, this is the code that we have here. We have the get GitHub data method, which will return GitHub data from our API endpoint. And to call our API endpoint, we need to use the Axios library. Alright. And then we get with the get GitHub data method, we return a promise which we need to subscribe to, right? And then when we run our app, we have to import and call our GitHub component in app.js, right? And then as you can see here, and then when we run our app in Chrome, we go to developer tools, and our console, we can see the following results from the console, right? It's an array and it is objects, right? And so after that, we're gonna have this component did mount method, right? And for it, we pass it this dot get GitHub data. We run the get GitHub data method, which with our search, which is Greg, and then we are going to get content from the server. While we are getting the content from the server, it's useful for us to have a loading icon. So we use the GitHub extends component class, right, with the constructor that the state is loading is true, and is loading will be true when loading of results from the server is still going on, and we set it to true in the beginning since we called get GitHub data in the component did mount, right? And then when it is false, right, we can use the conditional, right, the add conditional to make the div visible only when the component is loading, right? And if we load our app in the browser, we should see the getting data message being displayed for a short moment, right? And then for that, we are going to install the red loading library, and then in github.js, we are going to import React loading with the statement, the following statement below, right? And then we implement excuse me, we implement a GitHub results display page. For that, we need to declare and initialize an empty data array in our state. We declare it in our constructor as data as shown below. We have an empty array, and then we subscribe to our promise returned from get GitHub data and assign the returned result to the data array, right, using this right here. And then we'll modify the markup for the get bootstrap and include in it our component as shown below, as you can see here. And then lastly, we import the elements used in the React Bootstrap component with the import statement to install React Bootstrap, right? And then we have this list users here, which are maps over the media object for each user data we get from GitHub. Then we add JSX expressions wrapped in the curly brackets inside our template. And if we run our app, we should get a similar page as shown below. And then to add inputs to GitHub results display page, we initialize the is loading to false at first, since no call to GitHub is made at the beginning. Then we add a state property search term which will be entered by the user. We also add the bindings for the handle change and handle submit methods of the form, right? And then once we get notified of the results from our GitHub request, we set is loading to false and get GitHub data to hide the icon. Then we add the form component as shown here, and then we import the form and button components from React Bootstrap. Then we use the form inline to render a simple form with a single input, which is binded to the state's search term property, right? So in summary, this chapter we learned how to implement a GitHub user search application by connecting our React app to the GitHub RESTful API using Axios promises, and component lifecycles displaying a loader icon also. I was the driver and Asanda was my navigator. Thank you.